Podcast. Listen, this is season 7. I am so excited to be here with you all today. It's been a very rewarding to create, this podcast and have all of the guest speakers to come in and share information about government contracting. So I'm really excited to be on season 7. So our first episode of season 7, I always go back and I reach out to the individuals who are giving out information that's really going to help small businesses navigate this space and also understand that there's a old saying, it's more than one way to skin a cat, right? A lot of people think that, the only way to get into this space is to respond to contracting opportunities, respond to proposals, RFPs, and all of that. But there are multiple different ways to do business with the government, whether it's federal, state, or local. And today I'm excited to come in and we're going to talk about accessing no bid opportunities, those really small dollar opportunities where, you're in a lane in a one of one, right? So I have my guest on today, William Randolph. William, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thank you so very much for having me.
Absolutely. So you have a amazing track record in this space, but also just in the avenue of helping businesses navigate within this space as well. And I really want to kind of kick the interview off and start there. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself or how you got into this space and just let's run down the track record so people know.
Sure, sure. So, I'll start with I'm from Southern Virginia. I'm a country boy. I grew up on a 100-acre tobacco farm in Southern Virginia. So, in typical 17-year-old know-it-all, it's like, oh, I got this thing called life figured out. So I was like, I'm out of here. So I caught the first thing smoking out of town, which was United States Navy. So I joined the military right out of high
Yeah,
school.
Navy.
That's right. That's right. So I joined the Navy right out of high school, did about 5 years, came out GI Bill in hand, grabbed an undergrad degree in business, and that's when I found acquisition, or probably more appropriately, acquisition and contracts found me. So I started working for the Department of the Navy in 1995 as a contracts intern, and then for the next 26 years or so, I've been fortunate enough to moved from a GS7 all the way. I retired as a senior executive service member, having time in the Navy. I was the director of contracts at Marine Corps Systems Command, and then held several executive positions within the Department of Homeland Security in my last 9 years in government service. I retired in 2016, did a little bit of consulting around the DC metro area. And then in 2019, after I had gotten some exposure to the business side of the house, I started my own training and development company called Think Acquisition.
Now, I love that you mentioned that because that's one of the areas that I really wanted to highlight is you're the person who trains the new procurement professionals.
Yes, I am fortunate. I am very fortunate that I have the opportunity. A lot of the skills and the experiences that I learned in those 26 years, I now sell them back to the federal government and from a training and development perspective. So yes, I have interns that government contracting interns that I coach and train. I've got senior professionals that I in the contracting space that I coach and train. We've served probably over 20 government agencies, and all on both sides, civilian and Department of Defense. So I'm really very excited and thankful for the opportunity to include doing some contract work for the State Department, where I go around the country. I mean, not just around the country, but around the globe. We've been to Ghana and Ethiopia and Bangkok, Thailand, and Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. It's just been amazing. So it's been a great experience teaching contracting and procurement around the world.
Wow. See, I didn't know about the global aspect of it.
Yeah,
So huge deal.
yeah, it's great.
Huge deal. And then you also have another company, which I am extremely excited to hear a lot more about. Can you tell us about MicroMarket?
Sure. So it's a project inside of Think Acquisition at the moment, but I think it'll be growing out. So here's the premise. Our very first contract back in 2019, when I started the company, our very first contract was a $4,800 purchase card order. So so I know what the concept of being a new entrant is. It's like when you need that first piece of revenue to say, it's a real thing, $4,800. And then over the next 2 years of the business, we did over $200,000 worth of micro purchases. So these are transactions providing value to the government in chunks of $10,000 or below and being awarded via credit card. So when we built that model, we were like, wow, this is great. How do we scale it for ourselves? And one of the things we figured out is we had to show ourselves, we had to broadcast ourselves, we had to be available more, because when we looked at those offers, they were all relationship based. It was people that I knew, relationships, people that I had shook hands with. But that's not scalable. So it's like, how do you scale that? So the way you scale that is that you go online, you become evergreen, and you put your offers up. And in the middle of building that, we're like, wait a minute. If I'm in this situation, and I know there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other businesses that are looking for access, that's really what the micro purchases provide, is high speed, low drag, low risk, small dollar amount access. Then if we can build it for us, we could build it for everybody. So right in the middle of the project, it pivoted from a tool, an internal tool for Think Acquisition, to now a platform that we're planning to serve the country, the world.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, one thing that you said that just threw me for a loop, you said you completed $200,000 worth of micro purchases,
Yes, the first 2 years of the
card
business.
purchases,
Yes,
$10,000 and below.
absolutely.
Can we talk about that? Like,
Yeah,
just let's get into it because
yeah, it's really meaningful. And and I'll go back to that very first one. That $4,800 felt like 4.8 million. Okay, because it was the first dollars of that where we was like, oh, we've got something of value to exchange for money. So after that, because we were in the training and development business, we did a lots of different strategies. For instance, like pilot courses, we would do a pilot course for $8,000, and then that was the connective tissue for them to buy more. So we didn't stay there. We started there, but we didn't stay there from a value proposition. A lot of people always think about micro purchases as like, oh, you can't build a business $10,000 at a time. I was like, I don't know, maybe there could be a way. And again, we did multiple different types of strategies. For instance, we did lunch and learns. During the pandemic, it was huge because teams wanted to get their people together virtually. So we would do 1 hour lunch and learns, $1,200. Not a bad piece of revenue for an hour's worth of time. Building a slide deck on some content that was relevant and valuable, and presenting them for $1,200. So not bad for an initial piece of content. And I've had some of those experiences where it starts with a little piece of content. Specifically, one organization I was work with, I was on a Zoom with 12 people for $1,200, and then they said, "This is amazing. Can you come back and do this for 85 people? A few months later, same content, but we want to do it for a half a day. We're going to fly you and your wife to Dallas, put you up in the Gaylord, and I want you to come and speak for us for same content, just expanded." And it was a $40,000 event. It was a $40,000 contract.
wow.
So a $1,200 thing turned into a $40,000. That's the value proposition of micro purchase.
And I love the flip. Like, I love to see how you were able to take that one and just flip it,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Can we talk a little bit about what that process is like to actually obtain a micro purchase
yes.
opportunity?
Micro purchases are challenging, and they're challenging for two primary reasons. One, they're episodic, meaning they just happen when they happen. There's no long range planning. And then they're emergent, meaning when they need something, they need it today, tomorrow, next week, at the latest next month. You'll never go into any agency's organization and look at their forecast and says, oh, we're planning to do a micro purchase in the third quarter of 25. It just doesn't work that way. So it's emergent and it's episodic. So what that means is you have to be known and be seen when the government has the need and when they're looking. It's too late. Once they have a need and you aren't seen or you aren't known, it's too late. That's why the relationships are so important. But please know, every government organization has back office functions. So there is some scanning, there's some shredding, there's some printing, that type of information. There's some IT work, there's some analysis work, there are training. Every organization, if they have people, they're going to need training. So there's training and assessments. So there's a body of work that every organization has that they use micro purchases for. And we're actually trying to tell the story to encourage them to use the micro purchases for even higher level professional services, just $10,000 at a time.
That's such a key component of it, like thinking about it in those different aspects. Some of the areas, and you really mentioned it, that back office work, that back office support. One thing you mentioned was an assessment.
Yes.
That is something so simple.
Absolutely.
You would think that it would be done in-house.
Absolutely. But you'd be surprised. Market research, we've seen clients order market research. We've seen them order data analysis. We've seen them order academic work and research papers, or taking that information and doing some level of analysis with it, coming with an analysis of alternatives and doing a recommendation based on the research, on the body of knowledge that's out there. People buy that $5,000-$6,000. It's a week's worth of effort, but for $5,000 or $6,000, not a bad piece of work. And the true value proposition is you build a relationship, you build a little bit of past performance, you get to ask more questions. That's always the value proposition for me. Every time I'm going in for a class, I always end every class with a Q&A. And my first question is, so what else hurts? What else is bothering you? And I just sit there and listen. And then we go into the lab and we go build things for the things that they said are bothering them. And then 2 or 3 weeks, we come back with say, hey, we got something for that. They're like, how did you know? This has been eating our lunch for months. It's like, you just told me 3 weeks ago. Just give me a little bit of time. So yes, connective tissue, having the ability to build something small and have connecting tissue to larger value, and then going inside the tent and living with them and asking the questions and then being responsive to their needs. They'll tell you where it hurts.
I love that. Asking what do you need, right? What problems are you having? And just
Yes,
being a problem solver. That's why most of us
absolutely.
are in business, to make money and to solve problems,
That's
right?
right. That's
So
right.
if you are listening to this podcast episode right now, go ahead and hit that like button and share this with individuals that needs to hear this information. Also, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and drop some questions in the chat that you would like me to ask William as well. But I have another question that
Yes.
follows on to that one. And you mentioned relationships, and we talk heavily about having and building relationships in the government contracting space, or just as a business in general. Everything about business is relational, right?
Yes.
But the other piece of that is, how do you navigate this without having those relationships? What are some tips that you would say for a small business owner who hasn't had experience working with the federal government?
Yeah. So I think there's three things that I would offer. The first is, one of the things I always say is, if you build it, they will come, only works in the movies. Okay. You have to let people know you exist. So the first part of work in the government contracting space is you got marketing and branding work to do. It sounds like it wouldn't apply to government contracting, but it absolutely applies to government contracting. You have to have name recognition, you have to have brand recognition. Even when you don't have past performance, you can leverage your brand. And I see a lot of that happening on LinkedIn, a lot of it happening on social media. People are talking about becoming thought leaders, okay, based on sharing information that they have and sharing it for free. That's really important, because if you're giving value for free, people were like, man, that was amazing for free. I can only imagine what I'm going to get when I start paying for it. So the number one is, you got to let people know you exist. Number two is, you got to be hyper focused on what you do extremely well. Okay. Lots of folks may come into the marketplace and they want to do everything. I've had in my time in government, I've seen individuals that worked on cars, were caterers, were IT, and and also a financial expert. All of those NAICS codes were on their capability statement. I was like, dude, you're doing too many things, because what that says is you haven't committed, you're not an expert, you haven't gone deep in one thing. So we always encourage people to go deep in one, two, at the most three things. Now I know why those capability statements and those NAICS codes expand, because you're using them when you're pursuing activity. But I always say, let's have a primary set of NAICS codes, one, two, or three, and then have a lower set that are there to be opportunistic. But your primary set is, this is who I am, this is who I've spent my time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears to be an expert at, because that's what the government is looking for. They're looking for reduced risk. So they are looking for experts in these spaces. So what you do extremely well is very important. And so the first is know thyself, do your homework, and the second is be extremely focused on what organizations you want to work with. You have to build the relationships. And it's sort of like, think about if someone was single and they tried to date 27 people. It's hard to date. You can't go deep with 27 people. So pick one or two agencies and start building relationships, understanding their culture, understanding their language, their culture, their mission, their organization, how it fits, what are the activities that's happening, and go deep with a few instead of shallow with many. So those will be, when you're going into the marketplace, those are the kind of three. I always say, know thyself, know thy customer, and then do thy homework.
Do that homework. Listen, you dropping bars on here, okay? You are eating them up. I love it. I love it. So we do have a few questions in the comments.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
and someone is asking, they're basically asking, what are some areas that you would suggest a business would tap into for different micro purchases?
So it depends on, I think the first bifurcation is products or services. If you're in the product space, so goods, if you're goods, physical products, there are some places to go for that. In fact, GSA, if you look up GSA commercial platforms, GSA has identified 8 commercial platforms that they have sanctioned that says these are places where businesses can sell their services. The one that's eating all the 500-pound gorilla that's eating all the lunches in there is Amazon Business. But Amazon Business is there, and Amazon business model is just like its consumer model. They don't make anything. They provide the platform and allow people to sell on their platform. So the first break is is products versus services. Now, the reasons why we built MicroMarket and we hyper focused on services, because there's no place to go for services. Okay, we were trying to scale it for ourselves. It's like, there's no place. I wish there was an Amazon Business for services, but there wasn't a place. So we're like, aha, here's some blue ocean. Here's a place to build it. So that's the whole premise of MicroMarket is, if you're in the services business, we want to build a place where we train the government to give them value, where they come and do market research in one place. Right now, most of those services market research events start with Google. And if you know anything about Google, the people on the first page of Google paid to be there. So they may not be the best to deliver the service. They're just the ones that have made the investment to be seen. Again, it got to be seen. And I heard a comedian say one time, the best place to hide a dead body is on the second page of a Google search, because no one ever goes to the second page of a Google search. So if the first pages are paying to be there and the second pages no one sees, how do small businesses like you and I and your listeners, how do we be seen? We've got to find a place. And prior to MicroMarket, there wasn't a place. So our goal and our mission is to build the place to be seen in for micro purchase services.
Now, I love that you mentioned that. For everyone who's listening, can you tell us the website link for MicroMarkets?
Yes, it's micromarket, MicroMarket.co.
Nice.
Micromarket.co.
Okay. And now I really want to tap into that because we hit the services. Actually, before I do that, let's talk about services. I mean products. So
Okay.
goods, Amazon business. If a business creates a, Amazon business account, they're approved. How do I shop our products around to an agency now?
So there's two ways that I think that we do it on the services side that I think are informative for products. Number one is you do the market research on the platform to see what's the competitive market research to see what things are being sold at and what at price points. Sometimes you have to play the lower price game. I'm not a fan of it, but when you're in a commoditized environment for products where lots of people are selling the same thing, often the differentiator is price. So you have to play the price game. Second thing is that you do outbound marketing. Many folks want to get on the platform and they just wait for the eyeballs to come to them. I'm not one that waits. So once I have my offers up there, what I'll do is I'll do outbound marketing, people that I have relationships with, connections, or I think may have a need for my service. I'm going to push that stuff out there and say, hey, there's an easy button for you. Okay, here's the link. All you got to do is go to the link, sign up, hit the button. So knowing what's on the platform, so having market intelligence data will help you be competitive on the platform. And then second is don't forget outbound marketing. Don't leave it to the platform for your success. You do outbound marketing to make sure you are pushing that to all the people you have relationships with. I've even done a few cold email campaigns that says, hey, I've got something, I've packaged something that I think is so great that it's worth me sending you a cold email because I think you're going to need this. So I think there's a value proposition there in terms of ways to be competitive on the marketplace.
Got it. I love that. So doing the outreach, get on the platforms,
Yes,
but also do the right. It's a both and.
it's a both and. Yes.
Okay. So before we hit that one, we do have a quick question. So Charles said, what are micro purchases and mini purchases called at the SLED level, state, local, and educational level?
So that depends on the state. We've done some of the research, and sadly, the reason we started at the federal level because there's 50 different strategies at every state, and then you add the municipalities, they have a different version as well. So many of them are called micros. They have micros as well. They have. I've also seen mini small business awards. So minis, micros, a lot of them are called, have some connotation to small. So I think if you start asking about those, now here's one of the challenges and one of the nuances that we found is that at the state and municipal levels, their thresholds are different. Some are 5,000, some are 2,000. It's each municipality and state defines their own micro purchase level. We are fortunate while we starting at the federal level that the current federal level is $10,000, except for construction. Construction has a different one, so that's why we don't operate or utilize or have a category for construction on the platform because it's nuanced. There's a lot more in that. So we were sticking true to the 14 categories that the government spends about $4 billion in annually in micro purchase services.
Love it. Okay, if you are listening, make sure you go ahead and drop us some hearts or some 100s in the comment section if this interview is exactly what you were expecting. We have one more question as well. Clean Dream said, how do you prepare to receive a P card purchase? Do you have to have a certain type of platform to receive receive credit card purchases or anything?
No, you don't have to have a platform. When I started this is pre MicroMarket 4 years ago, I had a Square account. Okay, I went and signed up for Square. For MicroMarket, we use Stripe because they're one of the most robust from a cybersecurity perspective. We use Stripe, but Stripe or Square and some banks have their own credit card processing infrastructure. So If you want to build it yourself, it's more, and I encourage everyone to have a have a micro purchaser strategy. That's one of my beliefs, that every business should have a 4-part strategy: pursuing pursuing prime work, pursuing sub work, pursuing similarly situated work, meaning group or teams, businesses that are similarly situated, have the same socioeconomic characteristics. They link arms and they go into the marketplace together, showing up bigger than they would be by themselves. And then number 4 is a micro purchasing strategy. Even in your small business dynamic search, there's a question to ask you right there. It says, do you take credit cards? And that's like you have to figure out a way to check that block that you have credit cards. If you want to build it yourself, great. The goal is to be seen. And what we're doing is we're trying to aggregate the demand and aggregate the attention, so the government has one place to come look for micro purchase services.
Absolutely. And we definitely want to make it easy for people to spend their money
Easy to
with us,
buy,
right?
easy to buy. That's right.
That's the goal. Okay, so now I definitely want to hop into that, because you led the conversation with, you can have both, like get you a Stripe, but also set up your profile on a platform like MicroMarket. Can you,
Yes,
like, let's talk a little bit about what that looks like? Does it cost? How do we do that?
absolutely. So let me set the stage of why we're trying to collect the eyeballs. The federal government has over 709,000 credit card holders across the whole of government. Let's just ponder that for a minute. 709,000. Okay, so where else do you have that number of opportunities to connect and sell? So that's first. 709,000. Last year, fiscal year 23, those 709,000 cardholders did over 17 million transactions at the $10,000 and below. Okay, so just the credit card swipes, $10,000 and below, over 17 million of those transactions. Those 17 million, so prepare yourselves, this 17 million culminated in $13.2 billion worth of spend, $10,000 or less at a time in FY23. Those are real numbers, real numbers. Okay. So that's why it's important to be seen, because it's $13 billion that are flowing through the federal government, $10,000 at a time. And let me just paint the whole picture. There's another 10 billion above $10,000. So the credit card is used as a method of payment for actions above 10,000. So there's another 10 billion for that. In total, it's about 22, $23 billion that are spent in the federal government on purchase cards. Okay, so that's why that is. So on MicroMarket, we have
Before we pass that piece, so you said, look, you said the 10
I tried to
billion. You
leave
can't
quick.
pass that now. The 10 billion that's
Yes,
above the 10,000 threshold. Can we talk about that? What are
absolutely. Yeah,
those?
yeah. So there are times where the government will use the credit card as a transfer payment for funds. Instead of writing a contract for a $13,000 contract, they'll write an order, but instead of writing a full contract, they'll just do a credit card swipe with that. That doesn't have the same rules as $10,000 and below, but the payment infrastructure is already there. Okay, so they're leveraging the payments infrastructure to accelerate the payments, even though the contracting is at a higher level based on the dollar.
You, because I was always under the impression, like, if it's above, there's nothing that can be done.
No, yeah,
So that's great.
yeah.
That's great to know. Okay.
So on MicroMarket, this is why we're building it this way. MicroMarket, it's free to join. You asked me about the mechanics. It's free to join. It's free to list. We take a small transactions fee on sales, 7%. That's what the number is. 7% transactions fee on sales. So there's no cost to join. There's no cost to be seen. There's a 7% transactions fee on sales, and Stripe takes its 2.99% for credit card processing, which is currently one of the lowest in the commercial space for credit card processing. So roughly, when you add the 7 plus the 2.99, it's roughly a 90-10 split. So if you sell something for $10,000, $9,000 goes to the vendor, 700 goes to the platform, and about 300 goes to Stripe. 90-10 split. And we just tell individuals to create your offer so that you can build that 10% right into the pricing. The government doesn't see it. Whatever they pay for, whatever price they have, when you're listed on your offers, that's what the government pays. It is invisible to the government, but we don't mind sharing what that number is. We have it right on the platform. We tell everybody what that number is because we don't think we're robbing people. We're building. We want to build access. Large businesses are made from small businesses. You know, I've said multiple times that mature government contracting businesses don't fall from the sky mature. Okay, they actually crawl out of the mud and the sticks. Okay, so you got to start somewhere. You know, even the big guys like Booz, Allen, and Hamilton, at some point, it was just Booz, it was just Allen, and it was just Hamilton. So everybody starts somewhere. This is a good place to start. It's a welcome. Our goal is to build a welcoming place to start. And if we can get enough people started, then we'll get some $1 million, $10 million, and $100 million government contractors that are incubated out of a good start. But if you can't find a good start, you never get to the 10 million, 15, $20 million deals and businesses.
And I love that. I love the remembering that we all have to start somewhere aspect of it. And the transparency around how much it actually costs. It's free. It's a free platform to create a profile and an account. Can we talk a little bit about who uses the platform?
Sure. So today, most of our energy is coming in the education and training space. We have 567. I believe I just signed up 2 more people this morning. So I think the number is 567 vendors on the platform with about 400 offers. So some people have joined the platform just to be part of the community because there is a request feature that we built for the government that if they come and do market research and they do window shopping and they don't find what they're looking for, they have the ability to post a request and it goes out to all of the members on the platform as another way of building business on the platform because obviously the best value to come out of a connection is a sale. The second best value is a connection. That if you can get a connection, you can eventually get to the sale. So those are the 2 value propositions that we built into the platform. Is that we want to. I was giving a government demo about 2 months ago, and it came to me in the middle of the demo. I said, "We're Match.com for government contracts. We're setting up first dates. You know, that's what we're really doing. We're designed to set up first dates. What happens after the first date? That's up to you all. But we're setting up first dates. So we have civilian agencies that are customers. We have DoD activities that are customers. We even have other vendors that are customers that are buying from each other. I've personally bought from other vendors on the platform. I had an opportunity to sell a course on the platform and I didn't have the content for it. So I went on the platform, found an instructional designer and said, "Hey, would you build me some content for this course I just sold over here?" So it was a really great experience for me to not only be a part of building the platform, but actually utilizing it not only as a vendor, but as a customer, as a buyer.
And you know what? I think I'm on the platform right now, and you can actually see I'm logged in. First of all, I have an account. Let's just be clear on that.
Hey,
I had to put my offers in,
go.
but we have an account. And if you create an account at the top, you can actually see the browse requests, and you can see that people are actually requesting certain services, social media management, content creation. Like people are actually requesting certain services. So this is such a advantageous platform. I would definitely say that. And then the other piece of it is when the agencies, it's giving you the space and the opportunity to get in front of agencies that you may not have had a relationship with before.
Correct.
But it's just an opportunity, like you mentioned.
It's an opportunity. Yes.
So
I think it's one of many channels.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone should, I said this in a webinar about 3 weeks ago. I said, I don't think anyone should just try to build their business on MicroMarket. And then one of the webinar participants said, William, but please understand the first holy grail of government is, I mean, of business building is crossing that six-figure revenue model. It's like that's like the first when you know it's real. You get your first money is the first thing, and then you cross over six figures. And she said, you know, if you had a $9,000, you could sell a $9,000 offer once a month for a year, and that's $108,000. And I was like, ah, yeah, you know, the math don't lie.
I ain't
You know,
mad at it.
the math doesn't lie. And then what I did is in my response to her, I said, let's take that one step further. Please know that doesn't have to be 12 different $9,000 things. That could be one thing that you sell 12 times, especially if you're getting access to 709, the opportunity to get access to 709,000 cardholders. Do you think 12 of them might need the same thing? Whatever that thing is, do you think 12 in over 700,000 might need the same thing? So it's not like you got to build 12 things. If you have one thing that's extremely that is you're delivering extraordinary value, you can sell that 12 times, and the math doesn't lie.
Love it. Just small things add up, you know.
Small things indeed
Small
do
things
add
add
up.
up. I really like this. Now another question, and this is one of those components of understanding more around what type of agencies are you actively, you say you did a government demo. Are you actively pitching agencies? What does that process currently look like?
Yes. So the first round we launched in January of this year, and by March of this year we had our first 150 folks. So I was seeding for the first few months. I was seeding the supply so that when the government came, there would actually be somebody there to sell. But starting in about March, the first thing I did is I went out to all of my connections that I had from my 26 years of government and the relationships that I had built on LinkedIn, and just started, hey, I'd like to do a demo for you. I'd like to do a demo for you. And then those moments started catching fire. And then GSA called me. And so the General Services Administration, the commercial products team said, hey, could you come give us, we heard about you. Could you come and give us a demo? So GSA, I've done additionally, I've done a requested demo for GSA. I've also, if anyone knows about the government side of procurement, we have an organization called the Office of Federal Procurement Policy. They're the police, if you will, on the government side of procurement. They had heard about us too and said, hey, can you come in and tell us about, what you're doing? So I was honored to do a presentation for the Office of Federal Procurement Policy. Now, one of the nuances about them is they don't endorse private sector products, because they don't want to play favorites. But what they will do is they leave things alone. It's like they know some things are happening, and it's like, oh, okay, no harm, no foul. If you're doing no harm, go forth and do good things. So that was the best. That was the best outcome that I could have received from that. Was they are aware, they acknowledge, because if something was wrong, they would have easily said, do not use this platform. So yeah, I was really pleased to just have awareness. And one of the people in the demo said, "Oh, you're actually building a better mousetrap." And I was like, "Yes, sir. Yes, I am. I'm building a better mousetrap."
Love it. I love the comparison to a mousetrap. Listen, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. William, how can people connect with you?
So a couple of things, a couple of ways. First is on LinkedIn. If anyone has been on LinkedIn, they've probably seen in our space, I've got opinions on most things. So I'm out there routinely sharing my opinions on things. But directly from MicroMarket, you can go on the platform and you can connect with us there, or info at micromarket.co gets you a direct conduit into our customer care, customer support team, and anything that's directed to me will find its way to me. So info at micromarket.co.
Perfect. So I just dropped that in the chat for anyone who is listening right now. I've dropped it in the chat. Before we hop off, make sure you drop in some type of emojis, questions. Let us know what's going on and how you like this episode. And then also be sure to share it. share this episode with different business owners who need access to this information. And this may be the first time that so Clean Dreams just signed up for MicroMarkets right here, right here, right here.
Yes. All
So
right. Awesome.
absolutely. But for anyone who needs this information, this is the first time that we have William on the podcast, but it will not be the last. Okay. So looking forward to having this conversation again, a deeper conversation, and also just sharing more about the progression of micro markets and how many agencies are on board, by this time next year, what type of things are available. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Please know our goal is to have 10,000 companies making $100,000 a year. That's our goal. That's $1 billion worth of new revenue that we're going to
Love
be.
it.
That's our goal, and our platform can do that. So thank
It
you very
can
much
do
for the
that. I
opportunity.
can see it. I love it. I love it. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, William. If there's anything you need, let us know and we'll be happy to support. So
Thank
thank
you so
you.
much. That's so kind.
Absolutely.
All the
Everyone
best.
who's listening, go ahead. Like I said, don't forget to like this live. I'm going to go ahead and end this stream, but tune in. We are back. It's season 7 every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can come in and get information like this, right? You listen to it after the podcast and you can always come back and get the links that we're dropping in the chat. One thing about it, we are not stingy when it comes down to the information. We want to make sure that everyone has access to it and are taking the chance and opportunity to use it to grow. So we love you. We'll see you in next week and we'll talk soon. All right. Peace.
Bye.
Okay. That's it.
All right.